Welcome to the Outsmart Burnout podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Zarya Rubin, a functional medicine doctor, an international speaker, and a burnout badass because I've been there myself. After walking away from my own high-stress medical career, I discovered how to break free from burnout to reclaim my passion, purpose, and joy. And now I'm here to help you do the same. From science-backed tips to time-saving hacks, and hopefully some aha moments that just might change your life. So sit back, relax, and let's do this. Today's guest is someone whose work feels like both a mirror and a map for so many women, including myself, who are navigating burnout, perfectionism, and the weight of generational conditioning. Aleen and Raybin is a therapist and spiritual mentor who guides high-achieving women, eldest daughters, and cycle breakers to let go of the constant need to perform, prove ourselves, and keep pushing through. Her unique approach blends therapy, nervous system healing, and soul-centered mentorship to help women reconnect with who they were before the world told them who to be. She's on a mission to redefine success, centering truth, softness, and sovereignty, and to remind us that healing isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering who we are. So whether you're feeling the weight of burnout or are being called to break free from old patterns, this conversation is your permission slip to rest, reclaim your energy, and rise rooted in your power. I, for one, can't wait to get started. Welcome, Aline, to the podcast. So tell me, this is a tall order that we're going to tackle today. There's so many fascinating things that you address. And of course, I, for one, was drawn to your work as an eldest daughter, as a perfectionist, as someone who has struggled with burnout at many different points in my life. So I guess I always start off asking people, how did you come to find this work and what drew you here? And usually it's a pretty personal story, but I'd love to hear more about it.
Oh, how did I come to this work? I mean, I have had so many iterations of my career at this point and my life, right? I feel like I've lived lifetimes in my life.
Same girl, same.
Right. So I'm the oldest of four. So there's that, which has its own unique quality of you learn very young as an eldest daughter how to take care, how to care for your siblings, how to care for your parents. And really, I and my personality, a lot of our personalities are caretakers. So here I unconsciously, totally you don't have consciousness about this when you're 7, 8, put myself in the center as the glue for my family. And that's been the theme that shows up throughout my entire life. And I've been unlearning it over and over and over again. And so, most recently, probably definitely the last 5+ years, 5 to 7 years, I've been in a major unlearning experience where I left my spiritual community. I had 2 babies. I had a whole dark night of the soul that went on for years. I discovered that what I thought was this really fun, dark, and mysterious personality was actually clinical depression. And I came through the other side, which when it was the lowest of the lows, I still like, "Oh, wow, we did that, kid. We made it through." And I think because I'm so human oriented, I love humans, that it's one of the greatest gifts that I get to live out my truth and my experience and support others to do the same, because I crashed, burned, became ash, and then rose again. So
Like a
yes,
phoenix. Yeah.
how about that?
Oh my goodness, there's so much to unpack there. I just want to go back to thank you for sharing that. I want to go back to something you said in the beginning, which was going back to the concept of being the eldest daughter. So I am also the eldest daughter of 4.
Okay, okay.
It was sort of 2 and 2. So 2, with my parents, and then my father had another 2 kids, but I was, I'm still the eldest. So I think that you said that we learn very early on how to care and learn how to take care of our siblings, how to take care of our parents. We become excellent caretakers for everyone but ourselves. So I just find that kind of fascinating that as the eldest that we don't develop those skills for ourselves. We just direct them outwardly towards others, and I think that that's something to think about, and I wonder what your thoughts on as to why that is. Why do we gravitate so much towards taking care of others rather than ourselves?
I mean, ultimately, because that's our self. Our sense of self is only experienced through caring for others. So, like, a
We're
lot of
rewarded. I guess we were rewarded for it.
we're rewarded, and that's how we're seen. That's actually the only way that we get any feedback that we exist.
Oh,
So,
okay.
not like like, we actually have to consciously develop a self outside of everyone else, because we are just that. We're like a pass through for everybody. Or at least,
Mm.
like, okay, so, and especially, I mean, shocker, your parents split, my parents split, right? Like, there were all of these ways that then you become this family translator. I mean, still, I get to be like, "Dad, why did you send me that text? That's like none of my business." When we are all adults. We're all adults now. Like, I don't need to know that that's happening with my sibling, because it's actually none of my business. But, like,
Right.
I'm the eldest, I get the pass through of the information. And so then we reinforce it over and over and over again everywhere, because that's from the earliest times, right? Like, I think about it. I have 2 kiddos. I have 2 young kiddos. And so as I'm have my eldest where I'm like, "No, you need to listen to your sister because you're older." I'm like, "Yeah, I just did that thing. I did
Mm.
the thing, though."
Yeah, I have an only child, so I don't get to reenact any of that or repair any of the eldest child syndrome that I grew up with. My sister's hitting me or biting me or whatnot. And my parents would say, well, you must have done something to provoke her. So somehow it's always our fault. We always have
That's
to
our
take
job to fix
responsibility. The younger ones always get away with murder.
it.
And that kind of sets the tone for the rest of our lives and how much we are expected to take on and perform and just grin and bear it and be
Right,
there for others.
and we don't even know it. Like, we
No, no,
takes a
it's
long time to actually notice it's happened.
yeah. So, how did you first start to notice and unpack this and think, like, okay, this is the patterns that I'm seeing in my life are related somehow to my birth order and my family.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I have an answer to that question.
We ask the hard questions here on
Right?
Outsmart
I mean,
Burnout.
how did I actually notice? Well, I got kicked out of the house when I was 17.
My gosh.
So, the onus of the entire family's problems got placed on me. And that started my personal development journey. So that's where I started doing self-growth work and self-help work, and then just got hooked, always searching for what was wrong with me
Mm,
so that I could fix it, because obviously I was the problem because I got kicked out. It's way more complicated than that, but don't worry.
wow.
I got it under I understand what happened, but it just really, really reinforced that it was on me to fix the family. And in that process was the waking up was of, we got issues, big issues that I can't fix for everybody else. And so that, starting at 17, starting to individuate, getting kicked out, when I'm going to college eventually, then I worked in crisis centers, so domestic violence family resource centers with kiddos and with
Wow.
survivors or victims at the time, for years, decades. No, 1 decade, 1 decade. And then I went back to school to become a social worker and I got my master of public health all in the arena of preventing violence. So preventing teen dating violence was like really I thought that I was going to like be a world class researcher and program developer on ending dating violence. I'm not at all because we change and we grow and we develop. And ultimately, unlearning that I am responsible for everybody else also let me off the hook for being responsible to get every single teen girl out of abusive relationships.
Mm,
So, did that answer your question? I don't know. I don't act. How did I start to wake up to it? I mean, it was just such a gradual process, and it was a lot of individuation
yeah.
that I still get to do because I think we might individuate forever.
Absolutely. I think that's part of the journey, the whole process of discovering really who we are truly at a core level, aside from all of the expectations and influences and societal pressures and trappings, who are we really, right? So you specialize in helping high achieving women overcome burnout. And so what are some but I'm curious to hear from you. What are some common patterns that you observe among this group?
Constant overgiving, exhaustion, not like wanting to slow down to care for themselves, but actually unable to interrupt it to be able to do it. Okay, I'm going to say it. All of us high achievers are going to be offended real quick. Super fucking controlling,
First,
right? Because that's what we know how to do. Actually, when you are in the center of your family system, you're controlling. You're actually being the conductor of the orchestra. Not quite that hands off,
and I
but
think that that's where we derive a lot of our perceived safety as well. Like, if we can just
controlling.
control stuff, then everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But then that in and of itself becomes exhausting and unsustainable.
And such a trap. Such a trap. And then we acted out in all of our relationships and our work and the whole thing. So, I'm trying to think of other I think that's a good start.
Yeah, no, I think those are excellent. And how do you think that ties back to being sort of the eldest daughter syndrome and the people pleasing and all of these tendencies that create this sort of vicious cycle or perfect storm that I don't know statistically, I'd have to check, but I suspect that a lot of women who are high achieving are firstborn, eldest daughters and perfectionists. And then, of course, we know that perfectionism is associated with high rates of burnout.
Yes. You had a question in the beginning, and
Yes, it was just how does that role, that eldest daughter role and the people pleasing contribute to our susceptibility to burnout?
yeah, I'm gonna take it bigger
Okay, let's do
because
it.
this is ultimately one version of patriarchy in action. So, concept like patriarchy basically, I mean, it's going on for thousands of years. This is not new. This is not, if this is shocking to you, you're new to this is not actually new information.
Right.
So, patriarchy, the way that women, especially women of privilege, right? Because it looks different depending on where you're from, the color of your skin, all those kinds of things.
For sure.
Also, how much money you have. So, in my lived experience, the way that I understand safety in the patriarchy is pretty much doing whatever you have to do to still the waters and do what you're supposed to. And like this way of both the high achieving part is like, yeah, making a difference, but while also staying in line. right? These are literal survival strategies. No,
Mm,
the witch hunts were actually simply to to weed out any woman who was sovereign, who did as she needed or wanted to, right? It wasn't
mm,
actually, like it could be a group of women gathering. That was considered dangerous and yeah, executionable.
mm,
So how does this all translate and trickle down to high achieving eldest daughters is that we are primed to keep everyone in line. It's actually in our DNA. It's
mm,
not in our DNA. It goes back generationally. This isn't like a woo concept. This is actually like epigenetics. This is
mm.
very real. So I think that one of the biggest reasons that we experience burnout in high achieving women who are doing everything right and checking all the boxes and making sure that they are whatever, making people proud or staying under the radar or staying safe is really the way that we have been conditioned to silence ourselves, stay small, and not question, while also the demands in the world that we live in have only gotten more and more extreme. So there's not a whole lot of places for us to go except to burn out as the means to get free.
Wow. That's a lot to think about. And I also think about just in terms of the myth of productivity and value that we're fulfilling these roles and these expectations, and we're trying to derive our safety and our value based on like how productive we are. And therefore, because we're valuable in that sense, then that creates more safety and more belonging in the current patriarchal societal structure versus
Right?
actually listening to what do I need? What do I want? Who am I? Rather than what can I produce for this society?
Which is capitalism.
Mm,
That is how
mhm.
it's all of the systems are completely tied together to keep us drowning.
Yeah.
Because what happens when we are actually empowered and in our when we're living in our truth alive, we threaten all of the systems and all of the current ways of existing in a big way. We threaten them because we're no longer willing to play, which is why your career totally shifted.
Mhm.
My career totally shifted because I
Yeah.
like exiting the matrix is part of the solution to relief from burnout. That there are like there are maps on how to do that. And there are women you can study and you can read the biographies, but the actual doing it, you lose a lot. You lose
Mm.
a lot in doing it. You lose a lot of perceived safety.
Perceived value.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I mean, when I left my medical career, people didn't respond with, "That's fantastic." It was more like, "What are you doing?
Right.
And what are you gonna do if you're not a doctor? And who are you even? And how do you
Right.
define your existence or justify your existence?" And it can be really confronting. And
Very confronting.
and you really have to be brave and to do things differently and to forge a different kind of path and make different choices. And it's not necessarily rewarded by society either, either financially or just societally acceptably.
Yeah. That really true desire for high achieving eldest daughters to be validated and seen and told they're good. Yeah, we have to provide our own validation,
It
which is
runs deep.
not that's we weren't with, so
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love that. So, in terms of finding our own validation and creating boundaries is something that we talk about and you talk about in your work, and defining healthy boundaries and how that's kind of crucial for protecting us against burnout. So talk to us a little bit more about that, and how do you help women do that? Because I know most of us find saying no very difficult,
Right.
especially if you're an eldest daughter and you just want to say yes to all the things and help all the people all of the time.
It really comes down to being honest and telling ourselves the truth.
Step one, be honest with yourself before
Yeah.
you can be honest with others. I think that is a stumbling block that I have often come across, and I've seen others come across. It's not that we're lying to people, we're lying to ourselves.
Lying to ourselves. Yeah, I've been on a tear about this one because it's really, really hard to see the truth when we are hiding it from ourselves as a protective measure and a safety mechanism, as a survival strategy that we've come by rightfully. So then when we get really honest, get actually say, like, let me see, I can come up with really clear examples from my own life.
Yeah, some examples or some strategies maybe for women to help jumpstart that process or that journey of, like, how do you start to get in touch with what you really want and start learning to say no and set those boundaries?
I think you start by noticing what you get upset about. What are the things that you are silently seething and resentful about and considering, you know,
Yeah,
what weapon you would use to take them out? Like that is an indicator. That's actually not about them. That's about you. And that, right? I know you're going to be mad at me, and that's fine. You can be mad at me for saying it. But this is where you actually start to uncover, like, the times that I'm ready to kill my husband and then have to actually take radical responsibility because the thing he's not doing, that I won't do my thing until he does that thing, that is a me. That is all me. That is all
you're talking to someone who just had an epic showdown this weekend over the
right.
garbage with my
Right.
husband. Yeah. It's
So that
usually something small. The underlying principle is something big of, we're not getting our needs met, but we're not necessarily actually advocating for ourselves either.
and we're also most likely not meeting our own needs, which for me was like the rudest part as I have been unraveling all of this is the way that I expect somebody else to rescue me in any situation. Like, he has to do this, and if he doesn't do this, and I can, no, 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 Aline, you do this, and then your life no longer relies on what he's going to do or not going to do. And that's
Yes.
rude. I mean, that is just so rude. Like, the eldest daughter in me who knows how to get everybody to do the right thing, she's not happy about that. But that's the process of being really honest.
Mm.
Is that, like, radical, very true honesty of listening to yourself, because you're actually telling yourself everything that you don't want to know or admit.
Mm.
So it's all of the places where you feel like somebody else is doing something to you. All those places that we feel victimized. If it's that, well, it's because my boss will never let me speak up. Great. That's true. They won't let you speak up, but you're also not speaking up. And so learning how to push against those places is the opening. And then, of course, there's strategies beyond that, because that's actually very, very destabilizing. And so we don't need to put them into like action outside of us first. It's really simply, I think if they do that thing, then this. No, okay, so what happens when I actually take them out of the picture and I meet my own needs?
Mm.
And that could be journaling practices, that could be working with somebody, because I think one of the things is that we're inside of ourselves and our own construction, that it's It's really hard to see. It's really hard to see. So having the mirror and the reflection to get into it so that we can like pull it out by the roots and be like, and then actually care for ourselves as a self rather than
Mm,
as a central focus in making everybody's life better.
yeah. So many good things there. And I think that leads into then my next thought or question is, how do women who have constantly put others first and the needs of others first, how do we start reconnecting with ourselves and prioritizing ourselves? You mentioned journaling. You mentioned noticing those seething moments that
Mhm.
are really triggering us. What are some other ways that we can start that journey of prioritizing ourselves?
Noticing what you want because a lot
That
of
can be difficult. That can be challenging for us.
and that's exactly like noticing what you tell yourself you can't have.
Oh,
Noticing what
okay.
you don't want. We gotta go negative first because we aren't oriented to notice anything else, right? Like, the concept of pleasure is, like, so advanced for us, right? So, like, it's very much first, if it's making coffee in the morning, right? Like, I have a routine and it involves making lunches before they get up so that I can do the thing to do the thing, and so, like, figuring out when I'm gonna get my coffee in is a struggle every morning.
Yeah.
And so I chose, and I've been relatively like probably 75% consistent with making my coffee first. And that for me is like such a stand. And that's how, right? Like most people think we have to go to the grandest gestures first. We need to take ourselves away on that one tropical vacation by ourselves and get sleep. Yeah, that's great. And you can want that. But like, in your everyday life, you have to give yourself that because your burnout's not gonna be cured in a week.
Yeah, you can't just put your entire life sort of on layaway because one day you're gonna take some sort of tropical vacation. Love the concept of prioritizing really small, simple things. So my philosophy is all about what one step can you take, or what is the one thing less you can do in your life, or what is the one thing more that you can do for yourself. So make your damn coffee first thing in the morning. So I didn't do that this morning. And then my daughter was like, we have to go. There's no time for coffee today. And I was like, all right, fine, kid, you're right. But tomorrow I'm doing it first. Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
and I'm so glad you didn't go straight to the resentful place because that's also the, like, "No, you're my freaking boss." Great. Like, maybe I'm more resentful and bitter than you are, and that's okay too. But, like, it's very much
I can get
notice
there.
place, right? When
Yeah.
I'm like, now I'm mad at my kids because they're asking me to do something when I'm trying to do something. Like, I'm like, these are all, for me, these are all the indicators of not being on board, being out of alignment, not caring for myself.
Yes, and that is definitely one of the components and pillars of burnout is this compassion fatigue that we don't often recognize or realize. And that's when you get angry at your kids when they are just being kids or they're asking for something reasonable, and you're resentful because you're burned out and because you haven't prioritized yourself and your own needs. And of course, being a parent, that can be very, very, very difficult, especially when you're in it and when you're in that season of they're tiny. I know you said your kids are tiny. Mine's 11, so I'm like getting out of it a little, but it's been a long haul.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And, now that we're on the family topic, that leads to some other fascinating questions that I have about the intergenerational component to all of this. And I know that you talk about the concept of generational healing in your work. And, I've heard this concept of the generational errand as well. And yeah, if you
That's
could.
a new word for me.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so I've heard this discussed and mentioned in terms of intergenerational trauma or epigenetics, or just the fact that something may have transpired in a previous generation And it is our work in some ways to carry out that errand that wasn't necessarily completed or fulfilled in a previous generation. What do you think about that?
I mean, I feel like that's the time we're living in. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're living in a collective generational errand. As we move into a time of extremes that are like just getting more and more polarized and more extreme, what is actually being called for is us to find our ways back together. We're living in such binary times that the actual way through is the non binary.
Mm,
And that's really hard when we're canceled or cut or anything from either something we say or how we look or whatever it could be, how we speak, anything. And so, yes, our intergenerational work, it is incredible because I mean, the way that I experience it personally as a mother, the way that I see it with my clients,
mm.
the way that I understand it through both the micro lens and the macro lens of life, we are made of the material of the people who've come before us in a very
Literally.
physical, literal way, right? And so, yeah, because I'm sensitive and I've studied this for a long time, I can feel when it surfaces and when it comes up inside of
Mm.
me. And I can feel it in my clients I feel it, but I also know the languaging that you think of. So, yeah, we inherit and we transmit whatever the trauma is onto the next generations, which also means we inherit and transmit the resilience, the intergenerational resilience that we're passed through. When I think about,
Hmm. I love that.
right? When I think about, right now, in this context, we are the most liberated women of our entire lineage. And we still,
And yet.
right. And we still have a long way to go. But in that liberation, they are stories that they couldn't break free from because they didn't have the support, the rights, the whatever. As we were telling the kids the other night, we were watching Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And I know, it's so fun. And somehow I'm telling the kids how like women couldn't wear pants when this movie was based, and like how and I'm like, this is cuckoo, right? Like trying to, and they're like not, they're 4 and 6. They're not quite grasping what I'm saying, but a little bit, Um, so the things that we have access to and the things that we don't have access to are still playing out in the big field of existence.
I love that concept of intergenerational resilience
Mm,
because I mostly focus on the trauma. I'm going to be honest. My father and my grandparents went through the Holocaust. And so I have focused on that, but they also survived. So there's a lot of resilience there. And I know that I have a ton of resilience. And so does my daughter. She's the most resilient, bravest kid I know. And I think that this upcoming generation is really incredible in terms of what they are giving themselves permission to do and be and experience. And it's going to be amazing.
yep. And having been in the generation that really is bridging this past and future, um, there's a lot that we work with inside of ourselves in order to do that, right? Like our parents weren't really considering cycle breaking. That wasn't in the language or
Nope.
in the construct of the time. And then here we are trying to break all the cycles and do all the work that wasn't done, but also you can't do all of it. And that's the thing is that us high achievers are like, okay, I'm going to knock this one out of the park in my lifetime so that everything will be better for everybody. And that's not going to happen. I'm going to do my work and I'm going to be conscious of it. I'm going to do everything I can within reason so that I still have a self and I don't disintegrate again. And then, hopefully I'll raise them to be able to have hard conversations with me and we can work it out together instead of just enacting it subconsciously or unconsciously.
So, how can we raise cycle breakers?
I think one, learning how we break our own cycles, right? Because you're breaking cycles, there's no question. I'm definitely breaking
Yeah.
cycles. And my current philosophy is very much, how do I raise fully expressed little humans? Because if they are allowed to be exactly who they are,
Mm.
that helps them be who they are. Because being a cycle breaker is actually simply being who we are without all the conditioning. That's it.
Mm.
Learning how to not just be an eldest daughter who achieves and who's always striving, striving, striving and on the freaking hamster wheel of hustle, right? Like, we're
Yep.
not just that.
Oh my goodness. We've covered so much today. I want to
Mhm.
close about something to touch on. I know that you mentioned a lot of holistic work and spirituality in your work, and that can be something that feels kind of intangible and a little woo for people. So maybe you can tie that all together in terms of how spirituality, community, and holistic approaches can help us heal from burnout and help us break free from these patterns that we can be stuck in.
One of the reasons we get so stuck in the patterns is because we think we're one thing. And so for me, incorporating our holistic human experience as both like the most magical, outrageous possible. We have, you actually know the science of it all. I'm just gonna start, but like, we're made up of molecules, but we're mostly space. Like, that's
Stardust.
actually
Yeah,
real.
I know. It's insane.
That's not just this spiritual concept. It's actually foundational to who we are as people. So when we can be the wholeness of all of that, like, we share an earth. We are all breathing and exhaling the same air. There's no way we can't not. We're drinking from the same water sources, which is our earth. Like, so that's where for me it gets really, really rooted. And I consider myself one of the most practical people, because if what we do doesn't help you in your life, then I don't want to do it. Like,
Right.
let's help be human right now, because that's what we really need.
Yes.
We're not trying to transcend. We're actually trying to be here now.
That's a great note to end on. We are trying to transcend and be human and be here now. I love it. Oh my goodness. I thought this was a great conversation, Aline. And I just think that if everyone who's listening, if you love this conversation and you want to go deeper into Aline's world, you can find her in a couple of different places, right? You've got a website.
Yeah.
It's www.aleenraybin.com. Is that right? And then you're also on Instagram
Yeah.
at Aleen Raybin, and she shares a lot of wisdom on there and powerful reflections and a lot of tools for your healing journey. And so, yeah, anything else you want to add before we close?
Oh, it's such a treat. It's such a treat. No,
Yeah.
I have fun freebies to
Okay,
uh,
cool. Cool. What are some of the freebies that folks can grab off your website?
well, the one that I just created is called Truth is a Portal, and that actually helps. It's very directive to discovering our own truth, which is
Mhm.
that whole thing of like, how do we even know it works? How do we even know? So just want to,
Okay. I love it. And that's on the website.
is it?
Or
Like,
is it through your
see?
Instagram, link in bio?
Definitely check out my Instagram.
Okay,
I don't know when
perfect,
it's on my
perfect.
website.
And, as always, if this episode spoke to you, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend, or leave a review. It helps our show reach even more women who are ready to outsmart burnout. And until next time, remember, burnout isn't your destiny, it's your wake up call.